Hello, welcome to the MMA Free Fight of the Week. I'm Matt Salzer. So, I'm going to be picking, for this week, Quinton Rampage Jackson, for the Fighter of the Week, and I'm going to explain more in detail when I get to it. But anyway, so the major event that happened this last week was UFC 206, and so what happened was this was the first exclusive event on DAZN, which is a sports streaming service, and this is the like I said, it's the first exclusive event, and it's not the first event to be exclusive streamed on Bellator or on DAZN by Bellator, but it is the first exclusive event. So here's what happened. The main event was, I'm gonna go from main event down traditionally. So the main event was Gegard Mousasi versus Rory MacDonald. MacDonald was moving up in weight. He is the welterweight champion. Mousasi is the middleweight champion. And the result was that, predictably, Mousasi won, because he is, we are talking about a guy who won titles at light heavyweight, and MacDonald is, in reality, a natural welterweight, so that's just his ideal fight weight. So, he went up, and, to be fair, the first round was competitive, but then the second round just, Mousasi started piling on the punches and eventually got the TKO. So that just traditional how it went. And he defended his title, said that he'd like to fight Lyoto Machida next. So that's going to depend on how Machida does in his debut. So we'll see how that goes. Then in the co-main event, as I mentioned, it was Quinton Rampage Jackson versus Wanderlei Silva. And Wanderlei, basically both these guys are fat. Wanderlei, in reality, is probably more of a middleweight. He just always fought up, and as some people have said, in pride, he was probably roided out. So yeah, it was Wanderlei versus Rampage, and Rampage had won the last fight. They're fighting the UFC. This is a rivalry that has gone across several different promotions. They fought twice in Pride, where Silva defeated Rampage twice. Then they fought in the UFC, where Rampage won. And now here they are in Bellator, and Rampage tied up the series at 2-2 by getting a TKO victory against the Axe Murderer. So they're actually talking about that this may be one of their last fights, not just in terms of a trilogy, but just in general, I think. And it kind of makes sense. They're both getting up there in age. So, but it was nice to see, kind of a look at a nostalgia fight. Is essentially what this was. So then, in the first fight of the welterweight Grand Prix, you had Douglas Lima basically choking unconscious Andrei Koreshkov in their trilogy fight. So Lima moves on, wins the rubber match, and Koreshkov, he loses. So, and of note is that every fight, not only is the grand prize supposed to be the welterweight championship, but theoretically, the welterweight title is up for grabs in every fight that Rory MacDonald is going to be fighting in addition to whoever fights up. So theoretically, over the course of the Grand Prix, you could have 3 different champions. But we'll see how that goes. So then the next fight, you had Aaron Pico, who in quick fashion TKO'd Leandro Higa. Now, of note, Higa is a bantamweight, and he moved up in weight. But this was Pico's real first test at the real first test since his debut, in which he was fighting up. Yeah, Pico continues to perform pretty well. So it's a question of, when they start talking about some serious, title contention here. They're basically giving him experience, so it's just a matter of where he goes from there. Then you had Kiri Melendez, the wife of Gilbert Melendez, going against Dakota Zimmerman, and Kiri won a very close. It was a very close fight, clearly a fight of the night, and so we'll just see where they go from there, because there's not a women's strawweight division, but you could make the case actually there's in Bellator. But here's the problem with that. Anything outside of the UFC, with the exception of maybe the featherweights, because Coker very wisely rated Invicta of their featherweights in order to secure a division. Outside of that, atomweight, there's not really too many. It's pretty thin. I mean, they're going to have to build up. If they want to create a strawweight division in Bellator, they're going to have to build up. And this is just one of those catalyst fights. Like, they built up to a flyweight division without much of anything. Especially after... Well, they were starting to build things up, but it was one of those things where it was just this weird flux situation, and as a result, where Bellator plucked some flyweights and UFC plucked some flyweights, you just have this flux situation where the better fighters are arguably in the UFC. No, not arguably, are in the UFC, but there's still some good fighters in flyweight in Bellator. So we'll just see how that goes. So anyways, then the last fight was the opening of the DAZN main card was Gaston Bolanos versus Isidro Gutierrez, and he won, and Bolanos won in the second round via TKO, and that's really all there's to say about that. So apparently, I did not know this, but the whole preliminary fight was on DAZN, and so that's I mean, I wouldn't have been able, because of my day job, I wouldn't have been able to see the whole preliminary fight anyways, but it was an interesting note. So overall, it was a good fight card for opening up on a streaming service, and this kind of also answers that question of when the next Bellator pay-per-view was. This basically means there isn't going to be another Bellator pay-per-view, at least not in the traditional sense. It's kind of like how Invicta at one point were starting to do their pay-per-views, and then they went on to various streaming services like UFC Fight Pass. This is what Bellator is doing, and this is also convenient for someone like me who does not have Paramount Network. I can watch exactly what I'm going for. So yeah, that's it. So UFC 229 is coming up this weekend. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor. This is going to be interesting. And I'm going to specifically only talk about that fight, because this is the classic striker versus grappler, and the question is, does the striker have enough of a takedown defense to counter the grappler? Because here's the thing, we all know Khabib's striking is not very good. He went against Al Alicante, and yeah, it's just the striking just was not that good. But on the other hand, we've seen Conor do not so well against, in the few grapplers that he's fought, like few true grapplers, because he hasn't really fought any true grapplers. What happened? Well, he went against Chad Mendes, and Chad Mendes was out of shape and nowhere near the caliber as Khabib in terms of grappling, and he gave Conor legit trouble. Conor had to come back from that fight, and it was actually that aforementioned being out of shape that actually caused the Conor to come out on top. But so here's the thing: Khabib's a bigger fighter, and he's a better grappler. So what happens? We're just going to have to see. I've actually seen some betting odds that Khabib's actually the favorite. So, but it's just one of those things where fights are just one of those things where, if all things are equal, the fight could really go either way, but this is not one of those things where all fights are equal, where they're both fighters are equal. These are two fighters with completely separate skill sets. Like I said, this is a classic striker versus grappler. So we're just going to have to see how this goes. This is not one of those things where you can really predict one way or the other. Like I said, if Conor has good enough takedown defense, or if his, he keeps everything on par, he's going to come away. If he allows Khabib to get a hold of him in any way, shape, or form, Khabib's going to get the takedown, and it could very well be lights out. Because Khabib's going to either submit him, which he hasn't done as of late, but he definitely has that capability, or he's just going to ground and pound him. And Conor, Conor may not do so well if he's been pounded on the mat for a good while. So we're just going to see how this fight goes. So either way, thank you very much. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. At Matthew Salzer is my personal Twitter and my Instagram. At MMA Freakout is the MMA Freak Twitter. Check out MMA-freak.com for exclusive content. I'm Matt Salzer. I'll see you next time.